Winners of Misogynoir in Fandom Spaces for PCA 2019. In 2017, I did my first PCA about how Black female characters, performers, and fans were frequently mistreated in fandom. 2 years have gone by since then, and for all intents and purposes, fandom has gotten worse in how it treats Black women and Black female characters. The misogynoir is real, folks, and it's not getting any better. Misogynoir 101. Coined in 2010 by queer Black feminist Moya Bailey, misogynoir refers to the specific ways that misogyny and anti-Black racism are combined in order to hurt Black women. Later, the creator of Gradient Layer, Trudy, provided a lexical definition of the term. I've edited the format of the definition for easier reading access. In Black Men and Patriarchy, Intraracial Sexism and Misogynoir, Trudy wrote that misogynoir is a term coined by Moya Bailey. Its etymology equals a hybrid word, e not currently used on the end, from the word misogyny, with miso standing for hater, gyn, woman, noir, black. Specifically, anti-Black misogyny. Race and gender together, intersectionally, are factors. This type of misogyny has a binary with white women, who still face general misogyny, where white women represent good womanhood and Black women do not, or has hierarchical levels that include other women of color, but only insofar as Black women are placed at the bottom because of anti-Blackness. It's especially virulent historically and can be proliferated by anyone in a social sense, though in an institutional sense, how it's articulated by others varies based on white/male privilege, etc. So this word was first coined in a post that Moya Bailey did for the Crunk Feminist Collective, where she was talking about the ways that Black women were treated in the rap music she was listening to and in the videos she was watching. On a related Tumblr post that was then reposted to Trudy's website, she responded to criticism of the words mixed etymological roots, which are Greek and French, by saying, "I don't care. I'm far more concerned that I felt like I needed a word to describe the particular fuckery Black women face in popular culture." Before we get into the meat of the presentation, let's talk about what misogynoir is and what it looks like in fandom spaces and fanworks. Important to note are two core ideas that hold up fandom, that hold up misogynoir. Misogynoir, again, exists along a binary. Black women are automatically elevated above white women, and like Trudy's definition says, women of color and other people of color do exist in this hierarchy, but they are all above Black women because anti-Blackness places Black women at the bottom. It uses micro and macroaggressions in order to reinforce this position, so Black women are constantly reminded that they belong on the bottom. Second, like Trudy and Moya point out, anyone can promote or perform misogynoir, as the end goal is keeping Black women down, and white supremacy succeeds no matter who's doing it. So in fandom spaces, you definitely see a lot of white women performing misogynoir towards Black female characters, Black female performers, and Black female fans, but you also see it from other female fans of color. It's a lot. Misogynoir takes aim at. In fandom, misogynoir takes aim at Black female characters, original female characters like Abby Mills from Sleepy Hollow and Nyota Uhura, who are always Black women, as well as race-bent Black female characters like Corey Anders on DC Universe's Titans and Iris West on DC TV's The Flash. It also takes aim at real Black women, celebrities like Meghan Markle, who received hate for her role on Suits, but now receives hate because of her marriage to Prince Harry and her connection to the throne. Candace Patton, who plays Iris West on The Flash, and Anna Jope, who plays Corey Anders on Titans, also received hate from fandom, including transformative fandom. And of course, black female members of fandom receive hate. Like, at the end of the day, harassment is obviously directed towards real black women, as you can't actually harass fictional characters. But the misogynoir directed at black female characters has a main goal of hurting black women. So it's really hard to miss that this is a problem that's aimed at tearing down and hurting black women. Black female characters. Here's a list of things that people say or do when it comes to black female characters in fandom spaces. There's a lot of X is a strong black woman that don't need no man, and that's messed up. Black female characters are often rewritten as desexualized bros or mammy figures to their actual or potential love interests. Abby Mills was turned into a nanny for Ichabod Crane in Sleepy Hollow. Nakia is everybody's mammy in Black Panther. And Corey Anders, despite her and Dick Grayson being set up as de facto parents of the Titans, is often like, whoa, I feel like a brother-sister relationship between them. Black female characters are also rewritten as villains by fans. See Brayden in Teen Wolf. Or they're killed off and or tortured in fanworks. Vivian from Dragon Age Inquisition was repeatedly portrayed as being put in her place via torture or sexual violence in fanworks shared on Archive of Our Own. These black female characters are often shamed for all the sex they're supposedly having with one of fandom's white dude faves, who fandom happily writes in sexual relationships with white guys. You see it a lot with Nyota Uhura from Star Trek. Zoe Saldana's character is in a canonical relationship with Zachary Quinto's Spock. Despite the fact that fandom is very, very focused on shipping and there's a lot of sexual content featuring Spock, and how Uhura is only seen in a relationship with Spock, she was constantly shamed for sex she was not even having remotely close to the screen. You know, it was really gross. Now, in fandom circles, race bending is one of the biggest threats to the continuous fandom focus on white characters over basically anyone else. Almost all of the black female characters that received fandom's strongest hatred have been race bent, and many are primarily portrayed by light-skinned or biracial black actresses. And in the case of these race-bent black characters, you get a lot of people saying things like, I don't hate X because she's black now. I hate her because she's useless. The real X would have been better. So all of the female characters that I mentioned in terms of the DC stuff, in terms of superhero movies, people will be like, oh, well, I don't hate her because she's black. I hate her because the red-haired version was better. Okay. So here are some characters that are subject to misogynoir. There's Guinevere from Merlin. This is from the 2008 BBC show. Fans of Merlin, who primarily shipped Merthyr, Merlin, and Arthur, white dude slash ship, they claimed historical inaccuracy in her initial casting. This is a show where a dragon lives chained underneath a mountain and magic is real. Okay. They also used their claims that Guinevere as a name means white and fair as an excuse to hate on the incredibly light-skinned Angel Colby because they could. They also claimed that they hated most how she was written. She received the most hate as her relationship with Bradley James's Arthur became romantic and permanent. Then there's Corey Anders slash Starfire from Titans. She received hate from the moment she was cast, including hashtags of Not My Starfire, which were later repeated when Halle Bailey, I believe, from Chloe and Halle was cast as Ariel. And so you saw the hashtag #NotMyAriel trend on social media. Um, Once again, the hatred ties into this black Starfire not being an acceptable sight for the viewer or character's desire. Job isn't seen as hot enough to be Starfire, specifically because she's dark-skinned. Many people who wanted to be like, I'm not racist, shared images of light-skinned black cosplayers and were like, with straight hair, and were like, oh, this is the Starfire we deserve. She's also not a suitable stand-in for the presumably white audience who's in love with Dick Grayson. You see this also with the Grayson fandom of 2014 to 2016, who responded to Helena Bertinelli being race-bent to be a black Italian woman with medium brown skin, and a lot of the white fangirls who've spent decades lusting after Dick Grayson reacted harshly at no longer being able to replace Helena Bertinelli with themselves. What's really interesting is that Marv Wolfman and George Perez originally portrayed Starfire in the comics with gold skin, thick curly hair and an almost afro, and with a backstory of being enslaved and subjugated because of her race. So while I hesitate to say that she is black coded, because coding is complicated and I don't think that's what it is, they definitely wrote with blackness in mind when it came to Corey originally in the 70s and 80s. And it's important to recognize that fandom is ignoring really obvious connections they could be making to be misogynoiristic. Then there's Iris and Nora West from The Flash. You can go and find hours of video on YouTube and other social media platforms focusing on hating them. From day one, Iris has received lots of hate from people who tried to hide it behind their desire for canon accurate casting. Um, and then once Nora was introduced in season 4 or 5, she was named multiple fans' least favorite thing about the season. She's killed off or erased in fanworks. Both are. But Iris is actually, she's been replaced by Daniel Panabaker's Caitlin Snow across the board. I covered this in 2017. But with the introduction of Nora, what's been interesting is that Nora, who is biracial, because she is a black mother and a white father, gets given Daniel Panabaker's Caitlin Snow as her mother, which means that fandom, the Snowberry fandom, doesn't understand genetics because they're giving two white people a biracial black daughter. Wow. Black female celebrities. Black female celebrities are already not seen as human or worthy of privacy and respect because of their celebrity status. They're warned not to check social media because of the direct access racists have to them. They're subject to dehumanizing social media posts and images, many of which tag them in the pieces. These are two images down here that I wanted to go into really quickly. So the one on the left is from a Vampire Diaries Twitter account. It's an image of a gorilla, and the caption reads, OMG, guys, look who I found. Hello, Candace Patton. The one on the right says, I wish I could sell at Candace Patton for a year's supply of KFC. And Candace Patton is far from the only actress who receives this kind of direct hate. In a 2018 Teen Vogue article, Riverdale's Ashley Murray, who plays a race-bent black version of iconic Archie Comics character Josie McCoy, mentioned that people flat out told her, just don't even go on the internet. Don't check social media. Recently, she actually on Twitter talked about how people told her that she should get in ovens, that she should die, that they called her a slut. Lots of really dehumanizing, aggressive language because Josie kissed Archie. And a problem with how misogynoir lands on these black female celebrities is that, for the most part, the studios do nothing to protect these women and girls, because many of them are young. Meghan Markle. She went from being subjected to the racism of the Suits fandom, which primarily prioritized a white dude slash ship above all others, to the racism of the royalty watchers of the UK that saw her impending marriage to Prince Harry as a sign that the royal family was being ruined. On a daily basis, UK media like the Daily Mail and the Sun comment harshly on the smallest things that she does, like her wearing dark nail polish or her lipstick or her touching her baby bump while she was pregnant, how she holds her baby. They run articles about how her morning avocado toast isn't just a sign of a millennial gone wild with unsanctioned power, but that it's possibly connected to terrorism. Wow. She's seen as selfish, difficult, and entitled for merely existing while black and royal. Part of it is because black women aren't seen as worthy of the fairy tale ending. To quote an article from the Meghan Markle tabloid pylon and How to Fix It by Michelle Ruiz. The coverage of Meghan can default to the popular narrative of black women as hypersexual, crude, and unlovable. Alyssa Cole, the award-winning author of the inclusive romance novel series Reluctant Royals, told Vanity Fair, "These stereotypes, hardwired into the societal imagination about black women, about our worth and desirability," she says, "are what's driving the daily, nonsensical, racist henpecking of Meghan." And this, again, is from Michelle Ruiz's The Meghan Markle Tabloid Pylon and How to Fix It. People dogpile Meghan. There's nothing she can do right. If she helps people without showing that she's helped them, they harass her. If she's in the news for helping people, they accuse her of wanting attention. And while it is clear that Kate, who is married to Harry's older brother William, received no small level of hatred from people kind of obsessively fixated on the royals in the UK, it's not to the same extent that Meghan receives. Candace Patton. The CW's live-action Flash series has been on for 5 years and 5 seasons. She's received hate from day one. Before the show even aired, people were threatening to boycott it, accusing the show of enacting white genocide, of erasing redheads. She receives tweets and Instagram comments that focus on body shaming, demands that she be killed off and replaced, and people tag her in this stuff to the point where she's talked repeatedly about the harassment she faces and how she understands that she is a first for many people in terms of the role she plays, you know, and that she's taking this on because it's so important for this representation to be a thing. But it's been 5 years and people are still harassing her. What the hell? Anna Jope. Like with Candace, Anna Jope is another actress playing a race-bent character. From the moment she was cast, she also received tons of hate, insulting her appearance, her identity, and her intelligence for daring to comment on the hate. 2 of her castmates, Minka Kelly, who plays Dawn, and Ryan Potter, biracial Japanese-American actor who plays Beast Boy, have defended her. It's important to note that Potter, who I wouldn't call white passing, but I'm not great at this, hasn't received nearly a tenth of what Jope has for her role. Like, at all. She continues to get racist hatred from fans who claim that they're not racist, that she's just not a very good Starfire. How about the fact that Titans just isn't a good show? Not liking something doesn't mean that the performer should be harassed. And at the same time, if authenticity is so important to these people who are complaining about Anna Jope and Candace Patton, they don't say anything when whitewashing happens, like in the case of Dick Grayson, who is, according to canon, part Roma. He is not represented or portrayed by an actor of Roma descent. So where's my hashtag not my Dick Grayson? Where's that trending? Oh, I forgot. The only people who seem to care about whitewashing are people of color. Black female fans. Black female fans are always positioned or portrayed as angry for no reason. Because they are a minority in fandom spaces, their contributions and discussions in fandom are erased or misattributed to white fans. Gaslighting, anonymous harassment, and racial slurs in the inboxes and mentions of Black women that speak up are common. Especially within the past 3 years, Black female fans are explicitly deemed anti-fans, out to rob other fans of their enjoyment of media and shipping. A fandom mantra often directed at these Black female fans is this claim that you're just harshing our squee. Why can't fandom be fun like it used to be? This is interesting to note because as recently as August 2019, people were actually accusing these quote-unquote antis of being the ones calling for a fandom past to make fandom great again, when the only people who've ever wanted fandom to be like it used to be are the people who have had power in fandom, who have historically been white women. You also see targeted harassment campaigns and slander aimed at Black female fans, especially those critical of fandom. Antis/outsiders. Black women aren't really seen as real fans. The default fan doesn't encompass us, even if we are silent about misogynoir. In Kristen Warner's Black Female Fans Strike Back, the emergence of the Iris West Defense Squad, she mentions that Black women aren't considered in the manners of fandom. Black women, especially those seen as critical of fandom behaviors or interests, are seen as outsiders to the point where being a Black woman can be seen as a red flag for some fans getting into a shipper fandom, because they're reframed or rewritten as antis for talking about how fandom fails them and characters that look like them. Here you see a lot of sustained harassment campaigns and slander taken as fact. I use my examples in fandom as an example because I left Tumblr in 2018 after sustained harassment from sock puppet blogs and anti-anti accounts who would reblog my posts and insult me and slander me. And I've received repeated anonymous hate comments from, I can see the IP address, but they're effectively anonymous, from other people of color who are insulting me and lying about what I do and why I do it. One recent example came shortly before I traveled to DC for PCA. This is the third tweet in a 3-tweet thread that I was tagged in by someone I've never interacted with. In the tweet it says, "And I'm not denying that racism exists in pro-shipper spaces here, but I don't really trust people who have had a record of being racist in the past, as well as using racism as a bludgeon against other fans of color. Since this is contractually required these days, I'm a woman of color." So this is someone I've never interacted with. I don't know them. And not only are they lying on me with this, I have a record of being racist in the past, but they're accusing me, in terms of using violent language, of hurting other fans of color because I'm using racism as a bludgeon, which is a very violently worded statement, against other fans of color. But this is another woman of color, so I would assume this is the same thing. But this is what happens to Black female fans in fandom, especially those who are critical of fandom. Black women in fandom that talk about race or racism in their fandom spaces are often dehumanized and further marginalized within fandom spaces, often by being called antis. Fandom's evolution of the anti-fan, which was originally kind of coined in 2003 in Jonathan Gray's work. So after 2016 and Voltron Legendary Defender fandom's weirdness, caused the term anti to be applied primarily to marginalized people criticizing fandom at any level. So when you see people talking about this is an anti-free space, and they don't usually say anti what, sometimes they're like, this is a space free of criticism of ship, let people ship what they want, whatever. But the anti blank, the blank is very rarely defined, because to explain the blank is to reduce their argument, because once you realize what they're arguing in favor of, the antis look a lot shady. And I know that there are people who disagree with the idea that the anti-fan the usage of it has anything to do with race, but I've been tracking this from the origins of the Voltron fandom, that first shifting evolution of the term, to now, and especially within fandoms populated by women of color, especially Black women, who call out fandom anti-shifts to be about marginalized people, and Black women in particular. Everything's a ship war. First, I'll talk about this quote from Not So Star Spangled, examining race, privilege, and problems in MCU's Captain America fandom by Kate Coker and Rukmini Pandey. Declaring the problem a ship war wasn't so much revisionist history as wishful thinking. Fans like to consider Fanish space utopian, and racism doesn't belong in utopia. Therefore, the problem wasn't racism, it was ships. The context here is that in 2014, a big name in the Stoney fandom, which is Steve Rogers and Tony Stark, was all, it makes more sense for Sam Wilson / the one black guy that is alive the entire movie and nobody questions that, to be Hydra than Tony Stark. And Hydra at this time was connected explicitly to Nazis and was a white supremacist organization. And when black folks protested that whole thing, our anger was deemed as a ship war and dismissed, because, the only reason we must care about representation and how fandom talks about black characters is because of shipping, us caring that you guys won't ship our ships. One repeated thing was that people really don't like talking about real racism in fandom, because a lot of people believe that real racism, when it crops up in fandom, is an of fandom, right? So racism in fandom isn't coming from inside the house, it's coming from outsiders. So BTS fandom will accuse people talking about of people who are racist in anonymous messages of being antis. Instead of going, this is our fandom has problems, they'll say these are anti-BTS fans. BTS anti-fans are trying to make our fandom look bad. And it's like, bitch, no. Your fandom looks bad on its own. It's fine. Just work on it. But a big name fan sharing a post suggesting that a black guy could be a member of a canonical white supremacist hate group isn't real racism. So, what? When we lashed out and clapped back, we weren't doing so because we were dismayed by the racism present in I must diminish and dismiss a black character so that I can wax poetic about Tony Stark and how I miss him. Fandom, the MCU fandom, said that black fans, like me, I was there, were doing it because we were jealous Sam Steve shippers. The common denominator I keep seeing is black women constantly being dismissed for ship wars or causing wank when they talk about racism, shipping, and fanwork trends that erase or malign black characters. Can we fix it? Can we actually fix it? Maybe. Here are some solutions. Listen to black women, and not just the ones that agree with you / minimize misogynoir in fandom. If the only black people you listen to in fandom are the ones that make you feel like it's okay to mistreat other black women, you're a dump. A dump. That's what it said. A dump. You're not doing appropriate allyship if the only marginalized people you listen to from a group are the ones that make it impossible for you to grow and learn. Get introspective. What kind of fan works are you creating? What kind of fan works are you reading? What kind of fan culture are you participating in? Are you sitting around and zeroing in on white characters all the time? Are you a part of a fan culture that mocks black female fans for talking critically about racism in fandom? Do you sit there and legitimately say things like fundamentalists are trying to make fandom great again? Like, look at your house and think about what you're doing. Educate yourself, please. Where can misogynoir and fandom exist by people that aren't me? Black women, black people. We talk about our experiences publicly for a reason. Like, again, if you hate every single black person who goes, there is misogynoir in fandom, there is anti-blackness in fandom, that's a you problem and you need to fix it. But the work out there exists, and you need to put on your britches, your big girl, boy, person britches, and learn. You know, educate yourself so that you can be a better person and be better towards black people in fandom who are subject to unbelievable amounts of hatred and dehumanization in a space that is supposed to be safe for women, but is only safe for some women. And use your privilege, please. It is a fact of fandom that many people stop listening to or won't even start caring about people of color talking about race or racism in fandom unless their message comes from a white fan. Call stuff out. Call your friends in. Let them know that, hey, I see what you're doing there when you're talking shit about this black person in fandom. You don't have proof of any of that. Can you, like, chill? Maybe they're not a great person and they're not going to hold your hand, but, like, just block and move on. Stop being silent in the face of systemic oppression in fandom. Please. And this goes to non-black people in fandom as well, not just white people. Because as we covered at the start, misogynoir hinges on hierarchy. And the only thing that is significant and consistent across it is that black women are at the bottom. So if you're anywhere above us, do better. And if you're black and you participate in misogynoir, well, sucks to be you. It's not going to stop you from being the target of misogynoir, in or out of fandom. So work on that. I have no idea how to actually fix fandom or if fandom is even actually fixable. 2 years ago, when I presented on misogynoir and fandom at PCA for the first time, I ended my presentation talking about the way that discussions of misogynoir and anti-black racism in fan spaces toward fans and characters are seen as just a way for social justice warriors to control fandom. Not much has changed. Fandom remains a hostile place for black women and people assumed to be women all the time, as we're subject to witnessing hateful screeds about black female characters, seeing black performers driven off of social media because they're receiving hate, and a culture of harassment directed towards black female fans, especially those critical of what fandom does to black female characters, what it says about black female performers, and how it just approaches blackness. Fandom needs to do better. In 2019, there's no reason that we should be on this fandom racism 101 shit. Really. Be better. For further reading, I've included links to my PCA 2017 presentation, My Comic Book Girlfriend Has to Be a Redhead, Misogynoiristic Reactions to Race-Bending Iris West and Mary Jane Watson. A 5-part mini-series on misogynoir in fandom that I did to coincide with my presentation called What Fandom Racism Looks Like, Misogynoir. Diverse High Fantasy on Tumblr. She's a great person and an amazing resource. Michelle Ruiz's The Meghan Markle Tabloid Pylon and How to Fix It. The Journal of Transformative Works and Cultures issue on fans of color, fandoms of color. Rukmini Pandey's Squee from the Margins. Helen Young's Habits of Whiteness, Race, and Popular Fantasy Literature, which has a chapter on Race Fail 09. And Melanie E.S. Conan's Screening the Closet, a book that focuses on queer representation in media and the whiteness of it all, but also race in other contexts. But race and whiteness are very explicitly connected here as opposed to being ignored in other works. Thank you for listening and watching my presentation. I will not be at PCA 2020, but see you guys in Boston in 2021, I guess. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.